Welcome to Eurective's Tech Brief podcast. My name is Alina Klasen, your technology reporter. This week we look at the demand for data skills in German companies. For an overview on all things technology in the EU, sign up to our free newsletter or visit the website euractiv.com. This is Eurective's Tech Brief podcast. Today I'm joined by Jan Büchel, economist for data economy at the German Economic Institute, IW, Institut der deutschen Wirtschaft. Hi Jan.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We are here to talk about the research you conducted with your colleagues Jan Engler and Armin Mertens on demand for data skills in German companies based on evidence from online job advertisements. We already see that companies are requiring more and more data skills with the progression of technology and digitalization. This trend poses challenges, including the skill gap that needs to be overcome, which are insights of the research that we will be discussing now. I would like to dive into that by asking you, could you give a brief overview of the data economy landscape that we are in right now? What does that mean in the context of demand for data skills?
To investigate the data economy landscape, we conducted two surveys, each among more than 1,000 companies in Germany from the industrial and industry-related service provider sectors. And as a result, in 2022, only 31% of German companies are ready for the data economy. In 2021, it was 29%. That means less than 1/3 of German companies do not fulfill the requirements for an efficient use of their data. And as a foundation for improvement in data economy readiness, companies can build up data skills because in the end, employees execute data and digitalization projects in companies.
And what defines a company that is data economy ready? And how do companies build up data skills?
There are two interesting questions. At first, data economy readiness consists of three components. So to become data economy ready, companies should at first store data digitally. That concerns, on the one hand, internal data like financial, personal, or production data, and on the other hand, external data. That means customer-related or supplier-related data. Secondly, companies should manage data efficiently. That means they should build up a data governance structure, a structured internal data exchange within the firm, a data valuation, and a data strategy. And at last, companies should use data for different purposes. For example, they can use data for analysis or forecast of processes, for the development of products or new business models, or for data sharing with other firms. And in general, companies have also three options to build up data skills. At first, they can offer training on the job for existing employees. Secondly, they can hire external personnel via service providers for data or digitalization projects in the companies. But let me say this is rather for short-term needs to initiate digitalization initiatives and comparatively costly if companies aim for long-term digital solution that require a constant need for optimization. And lastly, companies can hire new employees that already have data skills.
Okay, that's very interesting. And while your research focused on providing tangible and up-to-date insights in the demand for job related to the data economy in the German labor market, how did you go about your research?
Data on job advertisements have the advantage that they are observable. In comparison, like I said, external service providers and training on the job activities are internal, and firms mostly have no incentive to publish information about these activities. So job advertisements are like a direct indicator for human capital investments of firms. And how we proceed, we use a data set from text kernel that contains all job ads in Germany from the first quarters of the year 2019 to 2022. Our aim was to classify each of these job ads, whether it requires data skills or not. But there was a big challenge because there are approximately 4 million job ads per first quarter of each year. So in total, it was about 12 million job ads. That leads us to the challenge that a manual classification of all these job ads would be very time consuming. So as a solution, we use a strategy to firstly annotate it 1,000 job ads manually. That means we 3 authors separately annotated these job ads. And as a theoretical background, we use the fact that data skills means that new employees support the hiring firm in at least one of the 3 components of the data economy readiness that I mentioned. That was storage, management, and use of data. And based on these 1,000 classifications, we trained a machine learning model that classifies the rest of the 12 million job ads automatically. So as a result, we have the fact that each job ad is individually classified whether it requires data skills or not.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. And which sectors exhibit the highest demand for employees with data skills? What challenges do the key findings indicate for the German labor market at large, and what were some surprising results?
Our main result is that in every 5th job ad, companies require data skills. And the demand is rising over time and heterogeneous among sectors. So the highest demand is observable in the ICT sector, with 48% of job ads in these sectors that require data skills, followed by the business service providers and vehicle construction, both with 34%. But this fact is kind of not surprising because all these 3 sectors are also leading in terms of the status quo of the digitalization and also of the data economy readiness. What was kind of surprising is that in these 3 sectors, there are not only more job ads with required data skills, but also the required data skills are more advanced. So for example, it's required the knowledge of cloud service and the clouds. So for example, it's required the knowledge of cloud service and servers. In comparison, sectors like tourism or retail have low data skills and they require rather basic skills, like, for example, software to process client data. And what was surprising one is that the demand is rapidly increasing in these sectors like tourism or retail, and also the required data skills are evolving since 2019. So, for example, cloud services becomes more important in these sectors, tourism and retail. So you ask about the overall challenge for the German labor market, and it is, on the one hand, we observe a growing demand for data skills, but on the other hand, there is an increasing shortage of skilled workers in digitalization profession. That leads us to the question, can the growing demand for data skills be met in the future?
Okay, I see. And how do you think that, given these key findings, what are some policy conclusions? What should German policymakers focus on primarily, and how do we prepare the next generation best?
So policymakers should intensify the recruitment of foreign professionals. For example, they can create incentives for immigration via higher education and not only after completing university degrees, which is mostly the case at present. To achieve this, policymakers should provide financial resources that are required for granting of residence permits for the educational immigration or offer more scholarships. And regarding the next generation, curricula should be aligned with growing business demand for data skills. So for example, computer science can be established as a school subject, or the supply of teaching staff at schools, especially in the STEM area, and their continuous further training should be strengthened.
And could you also make conclusions about the landscape at EU level? Because something I find quite interesting is that we are also lacking digital skills and the digital gap at the EU level. And for example, for cybersecurity skills, today there was an announcement of the Commission presenting a new cybersecurity skills academy, and that would be a multi-funding stakeholder initiative. Could you consider something like this also for, let's say, the German level as well? Or how do you think this can interact or be connected?
Yes, you're totally right. So in general, as a large economy in the EU, the results for Germany are to some extent transferable either to other EU countries or to the EU as a whole. So in first place, the result, a growing demand for data skills is a positive sign for the future development of the data economy in Europe. So European companies increasingly realize the potential of data and try to implement it in their own operations. However, as I mentioned, the challenge are also the same if you transfer it to the EU level. So the demographically induced shortage of skilled workers, like you mentioned, affect other EU member states in the same way. Therefore, European countries should work closely together to develop common solutions to first increase the supply of employees with data skills in the EU, and secondly, make the EU an attractive location for urgently needed skilled workers from non-EU countries.
And what do you think, since Germany is considered one of the more economically stronger countries, that it has kind of a responsibility to be a leading country in terms of initiative on this topic? Or would you consider countries that are digitally more advanced to be the forerunners?
I think it's a challenge for all European countries. So, like I mentioned, the challenges, like let me say, the skills gap is common for every European country. So, um, it should be a common solution to this challenge, and the countries should work together. So I don't think it relates to the status quo of the digitalization, for example, because the digitalization professions or the need for data skills are the same in all these countries. So they are to some extent combined with this challenge and should solve it together.
I find this a very interesting talk, and I was wondering if you have anything else that you would like to emphasize or discuss that I haven't particularly asked right now with regard to your research or the data skill landscape on German level.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. So this research paper was kind of the first step, and now we three authors develop a second step in which we look whether these job ads that are requiring data skills, um, in which field exactly employees are needed to support the hiring firm. So as I mentioned, the theoretical background for defining an data 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 job ad was the three pillars of the data economy readiness: storing, managing, and usage of data. So in a second step, now we investigate whether, in which, and to some to which extent companies are searching for new employees in these three fields, or if they are overlapping these three fields. And so this is kind of the next step we are doing right now, and we will see what brings this analysis.
That's very interesting. And given that you're proceeding with a second step analysis, what do you expect? What kind of results do you expect? Do you already see a trend, or is this very much up to this analysis of the second step that you don't even have any forecast you could potentially see?
Yes, we see first trends. So there's a high level of overlapping between these three fields I mentioned. So, and that is kind of remarkable. And the second point that is kind of remarkable is that the shares of the different um, employees that are needed in this field is to a very large extent constant between all these 4 years we are investigating. So, and this is remarkable because in every year there's completely new job ads that coming into the market. So this is kind of a trend, and this is kind of robustness of our analysis. Um, but let me say, there are also some job ads that are requiring just employees to separately store data or to separately just use data. So the full analysis will bring in the whole trends, but these are first investigations we made.
And given that you're saying that there is a trend of like new job advertisements for the years to come, also that you've seen so far in the trends, what are some particular examples you could give of like new emerging job titles recently?
Kind of surprising for me was the job title SAP consultant. So It was like someone who consults firms to use SAP programs in the right way. So, and for example, SAP combines all these three fields of storage, data management, and data usage. So this was kind of surprising for me. But the other main job titles that were mostly named in this job advertising with data skills are commonly known, and that were not new. There were just some kind of established jobs that are now added to data skills that are needed in these jobs, like I mentioned in the retail or tourism sectors. So now that are some kind of typical activity profile for the employees, and now there are some data tasks that are added to these normally profiles.
Thank you. That sounds very interesting. That's all we got time for this week. Don't forget to sign up to our free Tech Brief newsletter to stay on top of tech news and digital policy developments in the EU and beyond. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, published on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and Amazon Music. This episode was produced with the technical help of Evi Kiori. I'm your technology reporter, Alina Klasen, and thank you for listening.